Thank you, Tyler. Now we welcome into our studio Professor Robert Hazan, the chairman of the Political Science Department at Metropolitan State University. Thanks for joining us. So now we know that these two suspects are Chechen ethnicity, not necessarily from Chechnya according to their uncle, but that is their background. And we, of course, have heard many of the stories from the 1990s with the uprising there in Chechnya, some separatist groups. Should we be concerned here in the U.S. about potential terrorists from Russia?
Well, I think we should. Naturally, this brings the United States into the Caucasus and the Caspian Sea region, and there has been an ongoing conflict between Chechnya and Russia. Chechnyans are, politically speaking, engaged in an armed struggle to liberate their land. So now it brings the United States into the core of the conflict between Russia and Chechnya.
Professor, this sort of hits us out of the blue, doesn't
Yes,
it? Because there has been so much focus on the Middle East, but now as we talk about Chechnya in Russia and Kyrgyzstan in Central Asia, and we have a map to show our viewers to put this in relative proximity for them so they can understand the part of the world that we're looking at. What do we need to know about this region and what they think of us?
Yeah, I think what is really important to understand that at the end of the Cold War and the absolute disintegration of the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, Soviet Union, the instability in the region never ceased to exist. So from Kyrgyzstan to Kazakhstan to Azerbaijan, Russia including, and of course including Chechnya, there are really breakout conflicts that we don't follow very well because it doesn't affect us. But again, I would repeat this. This brings the United States foreign policy right to the core of the conflict in these former republics, in this area of the former republics of the Soviet Union. And in particular, it really ties us to the Chechnyan-Russian conflict more specifically.
And we often think about Al-Qaeda when we think of terrorists, especially in recent years.
Yes.
Could there be a connection to Al-Qaeda amongst all this other stuff that we're talking about with the Chechens, the Russians, and all the rest of the region there?
You are correct. There can be, and this is going to be investigated, and probably we'll be hearing about that fairly soon.
Well, now, as we listen to the uncle in that riveting interview that he
Yes.
did, and we just showed a tiny portion of it, it went on at length as he was talking about the whole situation out in front of his home. Why is he so defensive? He's adamant about the Chechens being a peaceful people. So why is he so defensive about the shame being brought upon the Chechen ethnicity and how this now really condemns them as a group?
Right. Now, naturally, this is a horrific situation. I mean, this is these young men are killers. They have murdered innocent people and injured hundreds of people. And I think the uncle's commentary is that in no way they understood these two young men. They didn't even thought that they would engage in such horrific acts. So I think that it's just an emotional response to how horrible it is that their family is now going to be remembered with this horror that occurred during the Boston Marathon.
And ABC News also reporting that investigators are concerned that there could be other affiliates of those two gentlemen in that area that maybe have the higher terrorist ties that the uncle is saying is not from their family. He doesn't know who they've been talking to, and so that is part of the ongoing investigation as well. Could there be other people in the U.S. currently in that area that may have things out against the U.S.?
That's correct. I think that this is where the investigation is going to move right now, and figuring out whether there was a network behind this horrific act.
Very interesting. So many different angles to watch and so many things to really pay attention to.
Yes.
Because there are those who would tend to paint with a broad brush and condemn just someone for being from an ethnic group.
That's correct.
And we don't want that to happen in our country either.
That's correct.
Thank you so much. This is Professor Robert Hazan, who is the chairman of the Political Science Department at Metropolitan State University of Denver, MSU Denver. We appreciate your being here on such short notice.
Yeah.